She was the face of the 90s. Vogue once called her the most beautiful woman in the world. But Linda Evangelista wasn't just a model, she defined what it meant to be a supermodel. When she first chopped off her hair and flew to Milan for Fashion Week, she was booked for 20 shows. 15 dropped her, no one got the haircut. A season later, everyone was copying it. That was the Linda effect. From Versace runways to the iconic Freedom music video, Linda was everywhere. Until, suddenly, she wasn't. So what happened? Why did she disappear at the height of her fame? And how did one decision alter not just her career, but her face, forever? Before the silence, Linda stood at the center of a fashion revolution. She wasn't just in the spotlight, she was the spotlight, alongside Naomi, Cindy, Christy, and Claudia. But unlike some of her peers, Linda didn't stumble into modeling. She chased it. "I really wanted to model," she once said. "I was obsessed with fashion, with clothing. I knew that's what I wanted." I wasn't discovered in a mall. As a kid, she raided her aunt's makeup, hoarded costume jewelry, and plastered her bedroom walls with ripped-out pages from Vogue. She started with $8 an hour bridal shoots in Canada, saving every cent to build a test portfolio. When she finally made it to Europe, she found that jobs went to taller, more conventional girls. But she kept going. "It took me years. I worked every day but didn't do anything genius at first. I went through a lot to get here, and I appreciate it." Linda was never an overnight success. She fought for it. And once Vogue booked her, she was in. But it was her creative partnership with photographer Steven Meisel that changed everything. They didn't just make photos, they built an era. Their work was polished, intense, transformative. Fashion evolved, and Linda evolved with it, from minimalism to glamour, from catalogs to culture. Then came the turning point. A single music video made her recognizable on the street. She wasn't just a model anymore, she was a cultural icon. She had the face, the discipline, the power. The world couldn't stop watching. And then, just as suddenly, she vanished. For years, Linda was gone. No interviews, no campaigns, no runway appearances like her peers. Naomi was still working. Cindy was building brands. But Linda? Nothing. Not even a candid street photo. Speculation grew. Was she retired? Sick? No one knew. The truth was darker. Linda wasn't retreating from fame, she was hiding from herself. In 2015, she underwent a cosmetic procedure called cool sculpting. It promised painless fat reduction. But instead of shrinking, her fat cells multiplied. She developed a rare side effect called paradoxical adipose hyperplasia, PAH, which caused hard, painful bulges that disfigured her body. The damage was irreversible. "I can't put my arms next to my body," she said. "The bulges make them veer outward." For more than 5 years, Linda lived in isolation. She avoided mirrors, turned down every job offer, and withdrew from friends and public life, not out of vanity, but from a loss of identity. The face that had once defined beauty no longer felt like her own. My son used to ask, "Mommy, why don't you laugh anymore?" That hurt more than anything. It wasn't just her body image that was broken, it was her spirit. And the fashion world? It moved on in silence. No designer called. No magazine checked in. The industry she helped shape seemed to forget her. Eventually, Linda filed a $50 million lawsuit against the parent company of Cool Sculpting for disfigurement, emotional trauma, and lost income. The company denied wrongdoing, insisting the procedure was safe. But for Linda, the damage was already done, physically, emotionally, financially. What made her story especially tragic was its silence. No public meltdown. No scandal. Just invisible suffering. She wasn't destroyed by fame, but by the pressure within it, by a culture that tells women to be flawless, then erases them when they're not. In 2022, after nearly 5 years out of view, Linda re-emerged. Not for a brand. Not for a runway. But for herself. She appeared on the cover of British Vogue. The shoot was carefully lit. Her jawline shaped with tape. Her neck partially hidden. It wasn't a return to perfection, it was a statement of survival. "I miss my job so much," she admitted. But I can't just take jobs like I used to. Not with what I look like now. Her honesty struck a nerve. For decades, she had been one of the most photographed women on earth. Now, she was showing what it looked like to survive beauty's darker edge. The Vogue cover wasn't a comeback. It was a reckoning. Soon after, she joined Fendi's campaign for the iconic baguette bag. No filters. No fanfare. Just presence. She wasn't back to reclaim her throne, she was back to say, I'm still here. Even when you stopped looking. Linda didn't return to prove she was flawless. She returned to prove that flaws don't erase worth. She spoke openly about mental health, about aging, about how hard it is to recognize yourself when your face was once your currency. She didn't reinvent herself. She simply showed up as she was. In 2023, she faced yet another trial, a second breast cancer diagnosis. She didn't tell her friends. She barely told herself. I thought I was clear, she said. But the cancer came back. I kept it quiet. I didn't want to burden anyone. Again, she disappeared not from shame this time, but from fear she might not survive. Through all of it, one person stayed by her side, Christy Turlington. Christy checked in regularly, Linda said. She never gave up on me. When Linda returned to the studio again, it wasn't for approval, it was for control. She and Meisel released a book together. A visual archive. A declaration. I want to be seen how I choose to be seen, not how they used to see me. No campaigns. No apologies. Just a woman reclaiming the image the industry once used to define beauty. When Linda disappeared the first time, fashion moved on. The second time, it listened. Because by then, the world understood, Linda Evangelista wasn't just a supermodel. She was a mirror. A mirror for every woman discarded with age. For everyone who's ever hidden from the world in shame or pain. For anyone who's survived something the world couldn't see. That's her true legacy. Not the runways. Not the covers. But the moment she broke the illusion. The moment she stepped back into the frame and chose to write the caption herself. Not for approval. Not for beauty. But for truth. And that may be the most powerful image of all.